That was developed. Marissa, nice job today, by the way. Very good job. We hope that this allowed everyone to speak and hear each other in a different way. We wanted to be open and honest with everyone. And at this point, I think I'm going to ask the group leaders if anyone had asked urgently, and what I'm trying to look for is maybe one from every group, just to recap, and because we've captured everything, we've captured everything that you have, all the questions, all your thoughts were written down. We had a board member, in case you didn't know this, we had a board member at every group. The questions came up in my group, and I had I had the best group. So we had a great group over here. There are 7 board members here tonight. There are only 2 that are not at this meeting. Someone asked the question, well, could things change? And certainly, I mean, our board could say we agree with X and we don't agree with Y. Go back at it, give it time. I mean, anything can happen. This was the setup of this, folks, is that a committee made up of folks like yourselves. I'm going to kid with Maria because she was my partner. Maria is in Williamsburg, those of you that are from Williamsburg, and sat at this committee all through the fall and the winter with us. So we had at least a few dozen folks, Jane, on the committee. And the committee's job was just to make a presentation tonight to you and then one to the board. It's the board's job to vote on it, accept it, or deny it. So understand the ultimate power is in, we call it our team of 10 and with 9 voting members. I get to be like the pretty face of my team. What do you think, Bob? That was your job? Okay, all right. So that's really what the process is. And with that, I know there's someone from our group. So you can go first, since I know you wanted to speak. And you had a PowerPoint. Kristen, do we have that? Can we put that PowerPoint up? And
just a reminder that it is being filmed.
And you said 6 minutes, right? I'm going to get the stopwatch. Okay.
So I'll just introduce myself. My name's Jason Montalino. I'm a father of 4. I have 2 kids in Eastport today. Craig, who's in 3rd grade, Sage, who's in 1st grade. I will have 2 more future Eastport students. I'm also, just a lot of data in this slide, I'm also a numbers guy. I'm a CPA and I'm CFO of a global funding research organization. So I spend every single day of my career dealing with utilization issues in 30 countries around the world. So I'm ready to
speak up, Jason.
Yeah,
I think there you go. Yeah, just go closer. Or pull it right out.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time with utilization numbers, and don't spend a lot of time with microphones, so I apologize. But I put together a presentation today because it was great that the board and the committee put out a lot of data on this redistricting project. There was a ton of data out there to take a look and analyze, and I spent a lot of time putting it in a lot of the fashions that I would do at work, just a sanity check, just to get a feel for the way the data is shaping, to get a better understanding as to why we'd be doing a secondary rebalancing. I did not do any analysis for the elementary school rebalancing or the middle schools. This is solely focused on the secondary rebalancing. And if we could go to the next slide there.
A couple things jumped out at me when I played around with the numbers. The first was, from the numbers, it appears we've got a very aggressive growth rate for secondary school students coming to our area around the 10-year, between the 5 and 10-year mark right now. That's really driving up the utilization. That really puts out there that there may need to be a rebalancing. But the data, kind of looks a little fuzzy to me, so I'm really challenging that the growth rate is going to be that much, that many new students will be coming to our area. The second piece is, full disclosure, I live in Williamsburg, so I have a challenge with this rebalancing. Is the overall utilization impact that the Williamsburg-Norwood House rebalancing would actually have on the overall utilization rates. And then at the end, I've got a few requests for the board and the committee to please take a look at it again. Kristen, next slide. So first I'll jump into the secondary school student growth assumptions. The box here, and I'll try to really focus here on a few of the numbers. Essentially, using the data in the webinar, you're able to figure out what the full capacity is for 3 schools, Downingtown East, Downingtown West, and the STEM school. So if you fill every seat in those schools, you could fit 4,995 students. Now, I think we would all agree, having schools at 100% capacity is probably not optimal. Usually when you take a look at utilization, you don't want to be at 100%, you want to be something south of that. It's debatable whether it's 85, 90, 95. It really depends on your industry and the business. So that's up for question. In 2013, we've got 3,700 students, 3,742 in these schools. The projections right now, if you use the utilization rates that are put out there, shows that we're going to have growth of almost 700 students by 2023. The students in the secondary schools are going to go from 3,742 to 4,427. It's really dramatic growth. And also, consider this, the kids who are going to be in school in 2023, they're next year's kindergarten class, this year's kindergarten class, first and second grades, because they're not getting to the secondary schools into those time frames. Next slide, please, Kristen. There was good information on the elementary schools here. This is our feeder system, if you will, for the high schools down the line. So you can see in 2013, there's 52 students. That number does not grow over the next 10 years. It actually goes in decline. So the schools that are feeding our high schools are in decline. They are not growing at this point in time. But right now, really, it's our K through 3 class will be in secondary school in 2021 to 2022. They're a pretty good proxy for figuring out what 2023 is going to be, because there's not any growth expected to be going there. Next slide, Kristen, please. So here's where a little bit of analysis kind of came into play. So if you zero in on the second bold line at 52, that's made up of 6 classes, K through 6. So the average number of students in each class is 875. I know that the kindergarten classes are usually don't have as many kids, because sometimes the kindergartners go to private school or they go to charter school, whatever it may be. Kindergarten classes usually bump up once you get to first grade. So I try to account for that. I've adjusted for the kindergarten classes being light, so I said, let me add the number of kids per class, make it 950. I think it's a pretty conservative number. So if you assume that we've got an average of 950 kids per grade, and 4 grades can only be in the secondary schools at one time, that basically comes out to we've got 3,800 students in our elementary schools today that will be in high school in between 2017 and 2023. Okay, so if that's, maybe it's 3,800, maybe it's 3,900, maybe it's 3,700, but that still means that we need to have dramatic growth coming from outside of our district to hit the 4,427 number. In this model, it comes out to roughly 600 students. So keep in mind, we're not seeing any growth in the elementary schools over the next 10 years according to the plan that was presented. That means 600 students have to be moving here and starting between 6th grade and 12th grade. All this growth is coming through those grades based upon the model. For me, it was just, if it was 600 students and 200 went to elementary ed, 200 went to middle, and 200 went to high school, I kind of said that, maybe that's plausible, it makes sense to me. But the sheer fact of 600 students getting here, all starting between 6th grade and 12th grade, just for me as a skeptical finance guy, it didn't pass the sanity check. So, I think question, I think this is probably a question for McKesson. to get back is, what's really driving this dramatic growth in new secondary school students? Because just playing with the numbers, I just couldn't put my finger on it. So it's really no good question for me. Next slide. This slide is talking about the Williamsburg-Norwood impact on the utilization. Because quite frankly, if the board's going to make a decision, they've seen numbers on how the moving of the Williamsburg and Norwood communities, what the impact would actually be on the utilization. That's really the whole point here, to create space. So next slide, please, Kristen. Here is the before and after. So the top part is the status quo. So I think these percentages were flashed on the screen earlier. You can see downtown east today is 82%. Status quo would put it to 95%. West is at 68, and status quo would do nothing. It goes to 78.5%. Keep in mind the dramatic shift in new students coming here are affecting these utilizations right now. They're baked into those numbers. But if you do the rebalance plan, and only Williamsburg and Norwood House are impacted by this rebalancing, you can see if you just change those utilization percentages and really just work backwards with simple math, it comes out to 186 students. Now, I know we mentioned earlier in this presentation, I think Dr. Mussolini said it's about 130 students get impacted. That's actually a number I came up with as well, so it's really the same sanity check. So this model here suggests if you're going to have a 90% change in utilization between east and west, there has to be about 186 students get moved. And 186 students, to me, it seems like an overstatement in that methodology. Next slide, Kristen, please. I used this methodology that was on the SAE website. It basically says that 35% of the students at East Ward belong to Williamsburg Norwood. So I ran with those percentages. Next slide, please. Here was a quick sanity check. I have two sanity checks here to kind of back into the numbers. The first one is that we know today at East Ward there's 561 students. That number is not going to change materially over the next 10 years. It goes 561, 563, and 558. If you go through, there's 6 classes. Average kids per class is 94. Only 4 classes can be in high school at one time. That gives you about 375 students will be in high school at one time together with the current class that's there. Take 35% of that, you get about 130 students. So the difference between 130 and the 186 that's baked into the presentation and the models they're used is about 56 students. It's pretty significant. So I did that. Well, let me check it again. So I'll check it a different way. So Kristen, you go to the next slide. Here's where you can get a lot of information from your kid's yearbook. So you can actually go in and just count up the number of faces that are there. So this is what I call, it's called a waterfall. So you take a look at every grade that's there, and then you figure out how many students will be in the secondary level by the time this model gets worked out. So you can see, actually next year's kindergarten class will be the first, will be in 9th grade in 2022, 2023, and then you've got the current kindergarten, first grade, and second grade will be there. If you count the faces in the yearbook, you make a couple estimates for what next year's kindergarten will be, add additional kids to this year's kindergarten to bulk it up, you get roughly 377 students will be in high school or secondary school in 2023. Okay, so now you break it down a bit. There's the 132 students again at 35%. We also know that there will be a subsegment of Williamsburg and Norwood that goes to the STEM school. Next year, I believe it's approximately somewhere between 38 and 40 students will be there. So if you just assume that that level of students go there every year on out, of the 130 kids, you've got to take out roughly 38 to 40. Say they're going to go to the STEM school, the remaining kids are going to go to the high school. So if you've got 94 kids, 100 kids, whatever that number is right around that range, you're really only looking at, these last 2 lines here, a less than 5% utilization impact by moving the Williamsburg-Norwood communities. That's half of the utilization impact that was in the model. For me, it almost becomes, it's too minimal. I mean, if we were trying to make a decision to move utilization by 10%, this one's not it. There's just not 180 students that are going to be going from Williamsburg to West. It doesn't drive the numbers. I mean, that was just a number that really jumped out at me. Next slide, please.
All right, could you, we'll send this to the committee.
Can I just, I've got one more slide. I'd just like to wrap up. Can I please just have 1 more minute? Thank you.
I'd like to go right.
So here are my requests for the board and the committee. The first is really consider not redistricting the secondary schools at this time. The redistricting plan does not have a material impact until the 2019-2020 school year, and even at that point in time, it's less than 4%. The plan's 2023 utilization requires a large number of students moving into the district, and that's not a certainty. You know, those growth models can change dramatically. The Williamsburg-Norwood impact is minimal. It's not 9%, it's less than 5%. There's no real reason to make this decision now. It's not like we're investing capital in building a new school. We have to push kids there to make it worthwhile. We've talked about in our group, number of families that would split up. I'm sure that was discussed in every group. But really the last point for me is a big one. This decision could still be made in 3 to 4 years if the demographic assumptions actually do hold true. There's no need to make the decision now unless the demographics hold true. You can still move the same kids in 3 to 4 years and they would still have all of the same impact. Making the decision now, we also run the risk of what if the demographics don't hold true? We made the decision and didn't really need to. Last slide, and then I will get off. 2 other requests is, I please ask the board and the committee, please reassess the data, assess the dramatic growth, get a good understanding of the true utilization of moving Williamsburg and Norwood, and also really consider the impact on the community and families of the Williamsburg-Norwood school children. You know, asking 100 children to move away from their peers is really outside of the norm for the most part. And you know, I'm really trying to get the benefit of moving 100 kids when it's not really driving a utilization impact. That's really the whole goal of this whole project. I thank you for the time and I appreciate it.
You said you're an accountant, is that right? I want to introduce you to Rich Fazio. He's our accountant, our business guy. And you guys need to get together. Yeah, I kind of see the same statistics and the same studies. I'm kidding. Thank you. That was very good. Another group might want to, is there anyone from Group A would like to? Group B? I mean, our whole purpose here was to make sure we can hear from everybody. I believe we've done that. But if you would like to, like I said, we entertain one person, and certainly, if you tell us your name, we would.
Sure, my name is Mike Doss. This is my 3rd appearance, hopefully my last. Jason, thank you for the presentation. It was exceptional in my opinion. Dr. Mussolini, one of the things that you kicked off the session with was a commentary around it only impacting 100 to 130 students. Jason's analysis just validated that to some degree. I've heard one of the comments when this redistricting concept was kicked off months ago was, if it's around 100 students, it probably doesn't make sense. And we're sitting here months later with, it's about 100 students, and it doesn't make sense. The other thought was, we talked about these 15 families or so that are impacted, families are split. You had mentioned that you may or may not have a plan for that. If there's a plan, I'd like to hear about it, to hear specifics. I did see that a number of the questions that were submitted were answered through the redistricting website so far. Certainly not all of them. In my opinion, that the responses were very general and generic. They were not specific. And many of them, in my opinion, felt as though they were, hey, we already thought of that. Keep going. So I can't speak for everybody. I've asked my questions what feels like 20 times now. I have given them through the website. They're hard copy. They're everywhere. And they're not just my questions. They're a collection of questions. I've tried to make it sound like it's a cohesive thought. And I'm really hopeful that the time is taken to appropriately respond to those questions with specificity and to come back to the table with a holistic plan that actually answers beyond just these numbers.
Thank you, Mike. We will definitely keep your words. Thank you. In Group B, yes.
Hello, my name is Reagan Overstreet. I represent a group of folks from the McElvain Woodland Circle area, Oakland Drive, directly behind Lionsdale Elementary, as well as the folks that are moving from Shimona Creek into Sprinton Manor and Eagleview. And For the most part, with the exception of the Shimona Creek folks, our group would like to say thank you for all of the hard work that has gone into this redistricting proposal. We fully support you. Thank you very much. We want you to know the Shimona Creek folks do have some concerns. There are only 22 folks from their neighborhood that are being redistricted to Springton Manor. The rest of us are being redistricted. Were we happy about it? Were we thrilled? No, we weren't. But we do fully understand it, and we do understand that it is the aggregate effect of redistricting that makes it successful. We also understand that redistricting is required and necessary. The alternative effect is to build another $30 or $40 million building and our taxes double. And we don't want that to happen as an alternative. We recognize that it is our responsibility as parents to make this a successful endeavor with our children and to work with our children to make sure that they are successful through this transition, because redistricting is inevitable. We also recognize and understand while there are large neighborhoods that are being impacted, there are also very small neighborhoods, including streets such as my own, where a portion of my street is actually part of the Westchester district, and a part of my street will be Lionville. I live directly behind Lionville Elementary, and we will be going to Euclid Hills. I also recognize that while in the first presentation that was very, very detailed, thank you, there was all focus on the numbers specific to what's happening later, specific to the high schools. What we also have to consider in that presentation is the aggregate effect of what's happening through the elementary schools now, and how that will also impact not just the development that's going to occur later, but the impact that's coming up through our elementary schools into the high schools. We also need to remember, too, that as we look at this proposal, this is the most solid proposal that we have seen for redistricting. There was redistricting that occurred 5 years ago. There was redistricting that occurred, I believe it was 7 years prior to that. This redistricting proposal, if it goes through the way it exists today, it will carry us through what looks to appear for the next 20 years without another redistricting proposal. That will be the first time that that has happened, and that would be greatly beneficial for all of our children, because then we would not have to see another change for our kids as they go through school. And that's more important, because for most of us, yes, our children are going to see 5 different schools in their career. Those of us that have young elementary school students. So we'd like to thank you. We appreciate the arduous task that you undertook. We thank you, and we implore that you continue to look at factual data, because the moment that you look at an emotional human element in your evaluation of this, you need to look at every single household in this district. Otherwise, stick to the facts and continue on with your proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll stay on this side of the room. Looks like Group F might be, is it F Troop back there? You guys don't even remember F Troop, that's why. How you do? Anybody want to?
Anybody have
E.
Yeah, I like to say something.
Oh, wait, we got one person in Group E, and then we'll.
I just want to say, I appreciate your comments. Your kids aren't going to go to Lineville or Euclid Hills, wherever they go, and then they're going to go to Lineville Middle, and then they'll go to Downtown East. Our kids are going to go to East. Just don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. Our kids are going to go to East Ward, and everyone in East Ward, except the kids in their neighborhood, will go to East, and our kids go to West. So there's a big difference with what you're citing, so I just want to make sure that we're clear there.
Very good.
My name is Mary Fetterman, and I am a resident of Williamsburg. And I can't speak for everyone from Williamsburg, but I know that I speak for the majority of us. I just want you all to know is we're not here making suggestions that you choose another neighborhood or that you split a different school. We're simply here because we do want to stay together. with our elementary school. So we want to ask the board two things. One is that you please vote on the redistricting issues separately, one for primary and one for secondary. And the next thing is that you please consider at this time not opting to do any secondary redistricting at all.
We'll do, you wanted to speak also, right? So we'll do, okay. One more, two more, go ahead, and we'll go ahead, please.
All right, my name is Jonathan Kramer, and shockingly, I live in Williamsburg. I think Jason stated it well, the growth, we really don't see it coming up from the elementary schools years down the road, so I think back to the earlier point, the statistics just don't show that the growth is coming there, so we don't see that as a big factor years down the road. In fact, looking at the numbers a little bit, West seems to be on track to be pushing more towards that overcapacity if we were to move more kids into West. And based on the home growth patterns, what we've been told in the past is there's more potential for growth in West down the road. Now, I know not everything might be permitted, and I'm not a zoning person, but the potential is certain. I think we could all agree there's more potential in the West side of the district for long-term growth. I want to go back to something that our superintendent shared last year. Hopefully he doesn't mind me using his words. But I saw establish a direct, unsplintered flow of students. And it seems like we're doing more splintering with this secondary proposal. I see the word splintering as separating an elementary school, which is what we have a great group at East Ward. Most of our friends are in the borough. We just moved out of the borough last year, and we looked for a place where we could continue on with East Ward. Also, looking at the map and the way the change takes place, I don't know if the committee noticed it, but you cannot exit our development without going into Downingtown East territory when this would be done. There's not a street that you can get out on where you would not be in Downingtown East. Seems a little strange. A lot of our streets feed right into, I know our kids play with folks up on Elm Court and Main Tree and everywhere else. Down in Norwood Road, that's all Downingtown East when this is done. So just thought that was worth mentioning. This also, it goes against some of the progress that I've seen in other districts. I came from Bucks County, and Council Rock recently went through a lot of redistricting. It's a booming area. They have a north and south. Originally, they had some splintered or split elementary schools. Part of their redistricting focus was to clean that up, and they did that. They no longer have split elementary schools going forward, and I think that's a great model. We also found there's a big quit to split move going on down in Texas. It really seems like the direction or the trend is to get away from split elementary schools if you can, instead of adding more onto it. Just two more points there. The point Jason brought up as far as the split with East Ward, the way it's set up, if you use the numbers that were quoted, it's about 35%, I believe, that would be East Ward and Norwood House, and that's at a point in time. One of my concerns would be, we are not going to grow as a development. Norwood House is not going to grow. However, there is potential for East Ward to continue to grow as an overall population. If I do the numbers right, and Jason's the numbers guy, that would mean that 35% would get smaller over time. So we would actually become a smaller and smaller part of East Ward over time as there's additional growth within East Ward. Does that make sense? All right, Jason's saying it works, so easy numbers. And I guess I'll just reiterate one of the things that Mary brought up. We would definitely appreciate if the elementary and secondary decisions could be made separately. We understand a lot of folks are for the elementary changes, and that's fine. But the secondary issue is definitely a separate issue. It does not have a lot of impact from what we can see, and we would love to see that tabled for 5-6 years. There certainly is no large impact that would need to happen before then, because even the numbers are not where we're over capacity 10 years out. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Very good. We're certainly seeing great current themes. You're going to be our final speaker tonight, and you've got it.
I'm Jonathan Stillman, and I am one of the committee members that has spent many, many hours on this. So I am simply going to summarize what was discussed in my group, Group D. I do not live in Williamsburg. So, the main point was that they do want to remain at East High School. That is their desire. Many of them bought homes because it was a neighborhood that was scheduled to go to East High School. They are geographically closer to East High School. There are homes that are closer to West High School that are not being redistricted even though they go to East. There's concerns about parents shuttling for after-school activities from two different high schools, with siblings going to two different high schools. They made the suggestion that if you do look at the numbers, there's no need to rebalance. There was the concern about 70% of these were going to East and 30% going to West, tearing apart friendships and the like. The one suggestion that we all seem to think was an interesting thought was the idea that the STEM Academy could be expanded by 50 students per grade, with some of the students being actually bleeding into the facility that is currently Downingtown West High School. Obviously, the building for the STEM Academy is a capacity of, I think, somewhere in the 80, 850 range. So, you know, you would need room for an additional 200 students, but it's an interesting thought. It's definitely outside the box, but it may help solve the problem without moving a neighborhood. There was concern about Lionville youth athletic sports. Most of the kids that participate in those sports go to East High School, and many of the kids from Williamsburg participate in the athletics. Within our group, there was 4 in favor of the move, 7 opposed to the move. Again, the concern about siblings being at different high schools, and then the potential for the reputation of the district to be damaged by continuous movement. So that was it. That was our group. Thank you.
Very nice summary. And actually, that's a wonderful ending because it does capture everything. Would you have something to add? Please, come on. Sure, please.
Hi, my name is Jay Whistler. I live in Williamsburg. And I brought up the STEM Academy point. I just wanted to point out that situation a little bit more detail. Thank you for bringing that up, first of all. There's underutilization currently in the West High School. We feel, I personally feel, that there'd be 3 winners if we could use that underutilization and expand the STEM Academy. The first group would be the students that would like to go to STEM Academy but get turned down. There'd be more people that would go to STEM Academy. They'd be winners. The second would be the school board. You get your rebalancing by rebalancing equal balance at all the schools. And third, the homeowners would not have to have their children redistricted. I see 3 winners in that situation, and clearly there's plenty of room in the middle school, so I don't see that as being an issue. I'm all for thinking out of the box and having a proposal that has 3 winners, and I don't really see any winners in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. That's a different point of view for me. I had not heard that, and I appreciate hearing that. I enjoy solving problems, and that might be an interesting one to look at. Folks, as I said to my group, no one on our board, no one on this committee said, let's go out and hurt people, or more importantly, let's go out and harm children. No one has done that, and you know, I know every single person in this room knows that. And I also know every single person in this room knows that we're in a growing district, and we do have some balancing issues. Whether it's Williamsburg, or Bell Tavern, or people around Pickering Valley, or people around Shimona Creek or Euclid Hills, there's got to be movement. No question about it. So we are tasked with a very vexing problem, one that we've perseverated over for many years. The board will tell you, I've been with them for 4 years and said, don't do this, just because I know how hard it is, and yet I understand it has to be done, and unless we can build or do, which we don't want to do. We have the room here. We have the room. It has to be done. So we have heard everyone. We really appreciate it. Let me just one more time tell you the process. So after tonight, I think next week's a short week, and then the following week the whole committee gets together.
No, April 9th.
April 9th, which I think is that following week, April 9th, Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday night. And the committee is going to go through your emails, the questions that you had that we're trying to get up on the website, and we do apologize if you think we're not being, we'll try to be more concise in our answers, we will, or more detailed in our answers, I should say. We were too concise. They'll meet on the 9th, and at that point, there will be some decisions, some questions will be asked, transition questions, options, timelines, you know, do we wait, as someone said, do we look and see what the patterns are, and at that point, at some point, and I can let Jean maybe talk about this in a second if she wishes, we've got to get to our board and really bring them up to speed. Everything is being taped. They will have access to all of our community meetings, access certainly to all the emails that you sent, whether they came to me alone. If you sent me an email, it was passed off to Pat McGlone, and Pat's categorizing it, cataloging it for the board. And the board is going to probably have a very interesting discussion some night soon, in the spring. I don't know when, I couldn't even tell you. And I would think it's a lengthy discussion and debate, because the ultimate decision rests with the Board of Education. And our hope is that we have a decision, one way or another, in May, or in the spring, June, whenever, so that we could begin to plan our transition. My team has to get the ball from the board once they say, Larry, here's what we're doing. Now, my team, Paul and Tom and all the principals, Linda I saw here, you know, Joe at Pickering Valley, we've got to start our transition planning. And that planning would include parents, that planning would include, you know, children meeting their new school, seeing their new school for that year. Wherever the transitions are, that's what we need to plan. And once the decision is made, now my team can get moving on the public relations end, and then getting ready for the following year, which is a really big year. The opening of the 6th grade center, transitions probably in the elementary school, redistricting the elementary school. As I said, nothing starts, even planned to start secondary until 2 more years, if anything goes. So I'm sorry, I saw a hand and an urgency. Go ahead.
So when the board votes, if there's not a yes vote, if it's a no vote, then what happens? Does it go back to the steering committee? Does the board make recommendations? Like, just curious if that were to happen.
Well, I'll let you.
Well,
How does that work?
at this point, we'll meet, the committee will reconvene on April 9th.
Right.
And I have no way of knowing whether it'll be 1 meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings. So I can't tell you when it'll come to the board. When it does ultimately come to the board, if the vote, we'll have to decide, are we voting for elementary and high school separate, or are we voting together? I mean, none of that has been decided at the committee level, and also, of course, the board has an option. And then, at this point, I would think at the elementary, the board, one of our goals was redistricting. And I think at the elementary, it's pretty imperative. So I would be surprised if there's no decision. And at the secondary, it'll be, if they say no, don't do anything, then I guess we don't do anything. If the board determines, well, we like this plan, but we want to wait a year to see whether we want to implement it, we could do that too.
And that was my question, if it was just like, this is the proposal, yes, no, or is it, it's yes with this, it's no with that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a board member could say, you know, let's say at the elementary level, well, I like everything, but I think this makes more sense here, and if there's a consensus, there might be a modification there.
Okay.
But there won't, I'm committed to having another public meeting if there is a neighborhood that is switched again.
because that's not what happened the last time. Neighborhoods were switched and people were not made aware. So that would delay the process.
Thank you.
Yes, sir?
I mean, we have the two of you here. Could we have commitment to have separate votes for the elementary and secondary?
It's not a decision for Dr. Mussolini and I to make. I would like to discuss it with the committee, and I would like to ask the board.
We'll definitely, we heard you. We'll take that up with the board. Thank you.
Dr. Mussolini?
Yes, sir.
I just, you know, obviously, when you present these numbers, people can make their own decisions, but without having a comparator similar to what Jason showed us, you know, it makes it very difficult. How can we be sure that the board is going to see those numbers? I think it's very easy to back into something like this.
Well, the board has the PowerPoint. We're here. We'll show it to you. I mean, no question. Obviously, numbers.
Give me copies.
Yeah.
Give them the copies. That's not an issue.
No good question. Numbers are the only numbers that are accurate are those. I mean, you can project out until you're from. I've got to tell you, I've been in superintendent. I've been in education 34 years. My 15th year as a chief school administrator. I haven't been in a place where projections have been accurate. I mean, things happen. The economy goes one way. Things just happen. Look at this year. No one ever would have predicted in this economy this district would go up 200 kids. We basically, the last 3 years, we went up 30 kids, we went down 60, we went up 20. That's where we thought we were. So we will look at the statistics. And it's like you said, it's what are you going to believe in? And the only thing that is accurate is what's sitting there. And we can predict it. No, it's not the whole picture.
Sixth grade in there.
Right.
And that's going to come out once the center opens.
Oh yeah. Right, it's still going to be an imbalance. It's not a matter of capacity, it's still a matter of imbalance.
But
Yes.
those percentages are
Middle
what the
school is
sixth
so
grade is at.
imbalanced. If there's room for 3 grades in the school now, and once you take 6th grade out, there should be no overcrowding issues at all.
No, that's capacity. I agree. That's not what this is about. That's capacity, you're correct. Balance, no.
But does it have to be balanced?
Well, that's
for all the children?
and let me politely say that's not your decision or mine, that's the board's decision. Because again, we talked about the idea of children. So we don't want to, that's not a productive debate. But anyway, we'll take a look at it, folks. Thank you. As I said, everybody on this committee is a mom and a dad. Everybody on this committee and the majority of my board, if not all of our board, has had their children redistricted at some point. So they've been through this personally. So don't think that if you're sitting there saying, oh my God, I'm the only person that went through. You could ask probably any board member and many of the parents on our committee about their children and moving from place to place. So anyway, folks, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. We'll hang around if you'd like to talk with us. We'll see you again. If we have another meeting, we look forward to seeing you. Keep your emails coming. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Nice job.